Okay, so today we're going to be doing the radiator. So you can see where the radiator is currently in the factory mounts. We're very close, about 20 mil or so from that water pump, and everything else just in general is pretty close. You can see our water outlet here. The hose is going to be rubbing against the radiator, even as tight as radius really. Really just a smidge too close to make anything run nicely, and we still need to fit in thermo fans, so that's not really going to work. So what I was thinking is, as I'm not running an intercooler or anything like that, there's plenty of room up the front, so I was thinking of mounting the radiator in front, usually where a front mount would go, sort of. So yeah, I'm just going to mock up something, maybe cut off the rad support or make new mounts, and maybe mount it up the front. We'll see how we go. So the only way of really mounting the radiator to get enough clearance for everything is to mount it on an angle, like so. I couldn't mount it in front because the radiator mounts a lot lower than the car sort of thing, so it'd be a real pain in the ass, and getting the hoses through the rad support would be almost impossible. So I'm mounting it and it's still using the same factory lower mounts, and I'm just tilting it forward. So you can see where it used to mount, I have this much room. I'm tilting it forward, I gain a lot of room, just enough. So because of this, obviously the rad support isn't going to fit anymore. So you can see it lines up basically square on with that edge there. So I'm going to chop up the rad support like so, and then make some plate mounts to mount this back on again, just so my bonnet and everything still works. I could just mount a little tube instead of this rad support and just make a tubular sort of bar, but it'll look a little bit shitty. It'll look a bit better having this still. Once it's painted up, it'll still look pretty good. Might reinforce it underneath with some 20mm box tube and plate it on either ends to bolt it on, but yeah, should work pretty well. Alright, let's get crack-lacking. Okay, so the rad support is pretty much done. Made a bit of a boo-boo, cut out a little bit too much, unfortunately, but oh well, you get that. Still looks pretty good, so I just plated it. Obviously, because I've cut so much out, it doesn't fully draw back together anymore, but I've just threaded some pieces of plate and just bolted it in. Same goes for this side. I still haven't finished it, made it look all pretty yet. I'm gonna have to cut the excess off and paint them and everything. And the radiator's just mounted with these. I'll probably rubber grommet the top so that it sits pretty square. And then the engine bay, the radiator pretty much sits flush with the rad support, so there's plenty of room now. Yeah, heaps of room here. So should be enough room for some thermos, enough room for the hose, and I've got just enough room for intake pipe as well. So that's the radiator. Sweet. Okay, so I got some AU thermo fans off a Ford Falcon. They're pretty popular. Thermo fan, they're cheap as. I've got these ones for free actually, but usually they're about 50 bucks from the wreckers. So I hacked them up. They're already a bit pre-hacked up, but I hacked them up some more and did the cutout for the top radiator hose. You can see on the Ford Falcon, it's obviously on this side. They usually have brackets out here. You chop them off, and then I chop the bottom. Usually comes down to about here, but it sort of lips out, so if you chop it up and chop the inside support down, you can get it real snug to the radiator. Then these brackets are off my old intercooler, so I just bent them and they clamp the bottom in. Top, I've got to get some big body washers, but for now I'm just using these, but I will get some bigger body washers that probably fit the bolts to hold the top in. But yeah, fits it nice and snug. Then I had to cut away this section, mainly to install it, but also to clear the water pump. The water pump sits about here. It does almost fit basically, but to install it as an assembly, you need to do that cutaway to get it to fit in there, just with my setup because my engine sits so far forward. Then in the car, I had to cut a little bit more of this. I don't rip that off. I had to knock some of this in. Obviously it's not street car, this is already a little bit knocked around anyway, but mainly this side I had to knock in just so I can actually slot the radiator in. I notched out this one as well and hit a little bit on the side of the radiator in to clear, because I need to bring it real far forward. As you'll see in a second, it's pretty close. So I'll fit it now and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so here it is all completed, well, minus paint obviously. So you can see the front's all notched. I did have to notch it more to move it forward. I had it maximum amount of forward before the radiator cap hit the bonnet, so I just had to tap the bonnet in to clear the cap. So I'll just get the rest of the offcuts and make a little infill panel for here, because I got all these holes here anyway, so I can put some little nuts and bolts in there, or make some plates with threaded bar like I've done for here. Just have to colour this. I'll have to get some of the green DHO Nissan green paint and paint all these brackets and stuff at the end. Made this bracket here. This one I had to make a new one because obviously I moved it forward, so it had to be a bit longer. Just made that out of alley plate. Got some bunnings, so I had to notch this one out because it's quite close to the radiator there. Doesn't touch, but it is very close. But it's all rigid as it's not going anywhere. So the clearance for the fans, you can see I've got enough room under there. I can fit my fingers between it. Plenty of room around there. And then all the other stuff like the hose has enough room to get the hose on, not foul. And the balancer has a lot of room. And then the upper pulleys have a fair amount of room. It's enough anyway, it's about 10 mil, so it should be plenty. So yeah, that's the thermos. They sit quite snug. You can see it sits basically on the chassis rail down there. If it will focus. Sits pretty much on the chassis rail. I couldn't cut that out, but just left it. And then this side, it doesn't sit on the chassis rail there, it's actually shifted over this way because of the battery box. It sits on the battery box on this side, so it is tight, but it does clear, so I'm happy with that. So now I just got to get the transcooler mounted, and we're in business. So there's the radiator, and fans all done. Mad. Alrighty, so to wrap it up for the radiator and cooling part of the build, I've made the transcooler. So we've got some L brackets up top, which I've just used some genuine nuts and bolts to mount that to the cooler and to the car. Had to drill another hole for this one, use an existing hole for that one. Then down here, just made a little bracket off one of the holes on the rad support. Mounted it to the back. You can probably see the brackets, the L brackets there. So it's pretty solid. It's not going anywhere. And yeah, so that's all the cooling part of this build done. So I just need to run the lines. I just need to get one of those GM push lock tools so I can remove those hoses and just put some normal hoses on there with some hose clamps and run it to the cooler. Need it also for the fuel line, so I'll hook that up soonish. So pretty much it's just not much to go now, just wiring a few little hoses and stuff and fuel system, but it's getting very, very close. Can't wait. Alright, that'll wrap it up for this part, guys. Stay tuned and I'll see you later.